Always fun. So we'll let it kind of build up for right now. Usually we'll do like a minute, 2 minutes for people to get on. So hopefully, oh, cool. Okay.
We're all
so
here.
We got enough people on here. I'm going to mess with the controls a little bit. So I apologize for the followers and for the people. Hopefully this will all kind of look good so everyone can get represented. If you are joining right now, this is Great Plains Action Society. I'm Trisha, and then we have Keely Driscoll and Alexandria Flanders, who are also part of the Great Plains Action Society team. We are finishing up the first 100 days of Biden or change, and that basically was to address the first 100 days of Biden's presidency and what we wanted to talk about and what we wanted to bring to the forefront. I think within these first 100 days, we've had the KXL canceled. We've had, Deb Haaland is now the Department of Interior Secretary. So there's a few things that have happened that are kind of, they're promising. They're amazing. However, there's still work that needs to be done. So today I'm joining the youth and we're going to talk about all these things that we have talked about, whether it's, legalization of cannabis, whether it is climate change, public education. So this is kind of just a free forum. We're just going to kind of have a loose interview basically to talk about these things. I will be controlling the little things here, so I apologize if it gets kind of messed up. We're still learning the StreamYard platform. So, but aside from that, my name is Trisha. I am from the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska, and I am the Director of Operations for Great Plains Action Society. I'm going to switch it over to Alexandria, and then I will let her introduce herself, and then you can popcorn it to whoever you want to, and then I'll bring them up onto the big screen. So
All right. Hi everybody, my name is Alexandria Walker. I'm in the process of a name change right now, so it's Flanders, then Walker. But, I'm an enrolled citizen of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska. I'm from the Winnebago Indian Reservation, but I also descend from Oglala Lakota and Sac and Fox people. I am the youth intern for Great Society, and I am at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. I'm going to pass this on to Bella.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'm part of the Omaha tribe, and I also have lineal descent from the Ponca tribe. Right now, I'm a student at UNO, and I'm almost graduated with my bachelor's in social work, so I'm excited about that. I didn't get everyone's name, so I don't know who to popcorn it to.
Ho Jagimoa Kanetishis, Keely Driscoll Netishis Mokamani Swan, Nemishkwaki Nemoewis. My name is Keely Driscoll. I'm from the Meskwaki tribe, with ties to the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska. I'm a current student at the University of Iowa, and I am an intern for Great Plains Action Society. And yeah, I will popcorn it over to Silas.
Buju Isas Nilan, no, Silas Ninjakas Makundure Galabani Gadika, Dujaba. My name is Silas Nealon. I am Barry Klein. I am from the Whitest Reservation, and I am a 13-year-old fighting line 3.
awesome. I always forget to unmute the mic and then I start talking. So, all right. So those are the youth that we have today. This is very impromptu, so we didn't get enough time to kind of gather every youth, because there's a lot of youth that are doing amazing things. So I just want to put that out there. However, continuing forward, just because this campaign is now closing doesn't mean that we don't have the opportunities to have these conversations in the future. So I do want to kind of put that out there. There's so many things that we wanted to do, and granted, with time, we just didn't have, enough time to do all those, but we will in the future. So I'm going to maybe let's start off with with a general question, I guess this is open to everyone. How do you feel that Biden is doing so far as, his presidency, his first 100 days? What do you guys feel? Anyone? I'm going to name someone. Bella, how do you feel that Biden is doing in his presidency so far?
He's doing okay, I would say. I think he's been doing like a lot of good things here and there, but there are still, I guess, with like most presidents, some like promises that have not 100% been kept. Like I remember he was talking about like free education and free college, but now in this stimulus that is like getting ready to head to the House and things like that, he's like, okay, no free college instead. So I'm just like, oh, cool. But another thing too is that I mean, I'm pretty critical of him, I would say, which I think, people should be, of who is being like their representative. I voted for him, but only out of like a lesser of two evils kind of thing. So, again, I just think that, with what we have right now, it's like the best we can get as far as like a president goes, unfortunately. So I'm just hoping that, yes, after this 100 days, he's able to pass some more legislation that's more geared towards the kind of people who voted for him.
I definitely feel the same way as far as, I think we lost Alexandria. She's coming back though. But I definitely feel that was kind of the strategy for this election was we didn't want, anybody but Trump. But that still meant that this was another white patriarchal, president that really doesn't really speak for communities of color. We've seen that in different instances. I think there was a time that he like almost roughed up somebody when they had talked about climate change. So there were things that were very problematic and still are very problematic. I think, I think you nailed it right on the head there. So I guess this next question is, how as youth can we hold Biden accountable to all the things that he has promised? How do we do that? Is it, nonviolent direct actions? Is it going to be a petition? How do you see that, I guess, going into the future? How can we hold him accountable? I'm going to pick on, let's see, Keely, I'm going to pick on you.
I think nonviolent direct action is something that a lot of youth are taking up. I know Silas and I were just in DC doing those kind of things. And petitions are very effective. Unfortunately, it just kind of depends on the issue at hand, right? Like going back to the last question, I think Biden has done a lot in certain areas. He has prioritized COVID-19, the climate, racial equity, the economy, healthcare, immigration, things like that. And I would definitely say that, like, right now the focus is on COVID. So for our communities who are trying to do nonviolent direct actions for other things like the climate that aren't like at the forefront of what the administration is handling right now, I would say that it's kind of a little less effective at this time because I think more of the focus is on getting vaccines out and focusing on COVID right now.
Yeah, I definitely, I am pretty excited to see that he did put COVID pretty, as the top priority, because obviously with Trump, that was just not happening at all. So that was really nice to see that. And we're seeing that, vaccines, whether you're pro-vaccine or you're not, it's there and it's available. So if you want to utilize that, you can. If not, whatever. So I just wanted to take time here because I don't know if Bella and Silas, if they have any other commitments, and feel free, if you have to leave at any time, just feel free to leave. But I definitely just wanted to talk about kind of what you do or what your passion is, what you're, what you're going to school for, if you're going to school. So I'm going to start with Silas. And I know that you had mentioned line 3, which we are like very big supporters of line 3. We are actually in the talks of coming up to line 3 to help out in any way that we can. So we've just all been pretty busy, like I said, again, with life, and we're looking forward to that. So Silas, I will let you take over and kind of talk about what you're doing and what your passions are and what really makes you a trailblazer, basically. So.
Well, yeah, I am fighting the line 3 movement because where I live, you guys are probably familiar with wild rice. We have one of the largest wild rice lakes in the world, and this pipeline is 13 miles away. It's plus by the Mississippi, and the Mississippi goes down to the Gulf Coast in Mexico. So I think DC was a big step to getting Biden's attention because he needs to learn that this is a native land, and he needs to shut down all these pipelines because it is threatening all these native lands and waters and treaties.
Yes, definitely. I definitely agree. We've seen this. We still are, with the Dakota Access Pipeline, that's still going on. We really want Biden to shut that down, which I believe one of our board members, Carolyn Raffensperger, it's a mouthful, basically kind of said that it's kind of Biden has that power to shut it down or not. And so, there's other ways that we can also bring that to the forefront, which are nonviolent direct actions, social media blitz. We can call him out on it. But ultimately, it's up to him to do these, to make these decisions for the tribal nations. And so that was another thing too, is in this campaign, we used a lot from the tribal nation plan from the Biden-Harris administration, in which they basically had made this big plan, which I think I even have right here. So this is what I referenced, when we're talking about these things, there's things highlighted, so I want to make sure that, that they are holding up to what they've put in this plan. And climate change is one of those ones where they basically said that, they're going to put at the forefront, and also respecting tribal sovereignty and bettering those relations. So that definitely ties into it. Thank you so much, Silas, for explaining what you do and what your passion is. I'm gonna have Bella come on and kind of explain what her passion is and anything that you want to talk about.
Thank you. Yeah. So like I said, I'm a social work student right now at UNO, and I recently just got placed for my practicum at the Nebraska Urban Indian Health Coalition. So I think one of my passions is definitely community organization and activism. And I recently wrote that article for the Great Plains Action Society about anti-capitalism. Thank you. So another thing too is that like I said, anti-capitalism is kind of one thing that I'm very for. That's kind of what I really enjoy to talk about most in terms of activism. And lately, I've seen a lot of legislation coming out about anti-protest or quote riot bills that people are trying to put forth to not only infringe on our First Amendment rights, but also just on our obligations to our community. If there's injustice, we definitely need to be getting out there and making a scene and doing as much as we can to interrupt just the normalcy that people place on that kind of situation. So I think, kind of being able to directly oppose like the elites in America, that kind of stuff. And then also working within communities to find that support and, build people up both individually and like, again, within like a larger scale.
I had some questions too. You said you were from the Omaha Nation, right? Is that correct? Do they have anything like as far as like maybe food sovereignty projects or anything that they actively do to kind of combat the capitalistic things, or like, I don't know if that would be like the term, but I feel like there's just so many youth on the Omaha Nation that have so many ideas that I don't know if there's anything that we can plug into and that we can support and uplift.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure myself because I don't live on the reservation and I don't also like I grew up with mostly my white side of the family, so I didn't really have like cultural ties for a long part of my life. And I've always been like an urban native, so I don't really know exactly about all of those programs, but I'm hoping to find out more about that as I go forward with like my social work degree and my practicum and all that.
For sure. I think I'm gonna switch over here. I think that it's really awesome that, when we do, because I was also adopted too when I was younger. So I grew up in a non-native household, and then obviously in a non-native city or like area. So I do empathize with you, as far as, growing up and, not really having my indigenous roots until I got older. But what I can tell you is that when you do go out and you have your education and, your personal experiences, that you are able to come back to your original homelands and share that. I think, don't quote me, I think Lakotas, they call it the Ozuya. And that's basically like you're traveling out of, your homeland and you're going on this journey, but it's what you learn on your journey that you bring back to your homelands or, your family, your friends. But yeah, I think that would be really great to see in the future is, bridging the urban natives in, the reservations. Because I feel like at one point in time, it was just kind of like, urban natives, oh, they live in the city and they're, whatever, they're city natives. But at the same time, like, we're all the same person, like, we're all the same nation. There's no need for the division. Obviously, we need to, come together to combat these, these colonial constructs of like, just conquer and divide, basically. So I definitely feel you on that. I'm going to go into kind of our next question, which I just had it at the top of my head. Or, well, I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to bring into the conversation? That is just burning desire. No. Okay. Oh, we lost Alexandria again.
I would be super interested in hearing your guys' like first experience in activism, right? Because I feel like that first time can be very impactful, and I feel like it stays in the memory, right?
For sure. I don't know. Oh, Alexandria's coming back. I don't know if maybe Silas, if you want to talk about that, your first experience of like, whatever it is, activism, if you want to term it that.
My first ever thing was a PUC meeting in Duluth, Minnesota, where people talk about why we need line 3 and why people don't need line 3. And I just seen people talk about why we don't need line 3, because when the people who are talking about they need line 3, this is all they said. This is our name and we need to build a pipeline. And then they went to go sit back down. I was like, but then when Clara Huska, who also came to DC with us, started talking and start talking and hearing her words about how line 3 and Ingrid is bad. And then I started getting more into my activism, and now I'm here right now.
For sure. I feel like, I definitely had my, I think like a defining moment when I personally had gone up to Standing Rock and, a lot of things happened to me up there. that it really did spark. You know, I knew about my Indigenous roots, but at the same time, like, I just didn't get it. You know, I was going to basically a PWI college that just doesn't talk about these things. So, so Tara, you know, talking about, you know, not the material things, or like the, you know, like this is our name and we need to have this pipeline, to bring it back home and to really talk about what makes us us, and that connection with, you know, the earth, you know, the climate itself, just everything that encompasses that. I definitely love. I think that's Standing Rock. That's how it was for me. Is that it was more of a more inner kind of a, not, I shouldn't say divine, but like it was just more of an inner call to me, and that's how I got started. So, and ever since then, it's just been kind of like, what else can we do? What else is there to talk about? So, Alex, I'll let you kind of talk about where the question is like, what was your first experience, you know, into activism, or what was that first moment or experience that you went through that just really made you want to make change in the world?
So, and yes, you know, my voice was silenced a lot just because, you know, you don't want people to think about you one way or another, or like your family. And for those who don't know, my family is kind of like, a lot of substance abuse was involved growing up, unfortunately. But, so it was just one of the things where you wanted to keep it like outside. But I think I attended my first activist event, I guess, through Michelle Free Lemire and her child, Rogue Lemire. We went to an event in Sioux City where a woman, an Omaha woman, was declined a hotel stay because she used a tribal ID to I guess, sign in or reserve her placement. I'm not exactly sure what the right term is, but it was when we went there and we sat outside that hotel for hours demanding that this woman be let in. And it was just one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, like, for one cause. And I guess it just feels magical in some way. So I think ever since then, you know, it's helping me gain a voice to where I feel comfortable to speak up, which has always been one of the things with activism. You know, I come from a background where, you know, my voice is silenced a lot. So being an activist, it's helped me.
I definitely want to, yes. Alex and I met, what was it, in like last year? It was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was last year. But I had met her not knowing that we were related. So we're, you know, she's my niece, and you know, it's like these things that pull us together. And you know, like I said, it's all about learning, you know, those connections. And you know, I'm very proud of you, and I don't know if you get to hear that a lot, but we are very proud of you at Great Plains Action Society. We've seen you grow so much over the year, and you know, it's just amazing to see that and to be a part of that too as well. So we are just over the moon with you. So Bella, what was your first experience getting into activism, or what is it that just that drove you?
One thing that was kind of like, well, I guess, I don't know, I kind of have two things that probably like radicalized me the most in my life. When I was little, even like in elementary school, I didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance for like religious reasons at first. And like in like fifth grade and like fourth grade and like even into middle school, kids would always be like, well, why don't you stand up? Like, are you disrespecting our country? And I was like, well, no, I just don't feel comfortable standing up. Like, it feels weird to me. And even some of the teachers would be like, you know, why don't you stand up? Like that kind of rhetoric. But that kind of, when I went to high school, I went to a very like liberal high school, and a lot of the kids there also didn't stand for the pledge. And I had like this one guy come up to me once and he was like, in middle school, I used to think that you were weird for not standing up for the pledge, but like now, like people don't stand up for the pledge much anymore, which, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I feel, I guess like I was the first one to do it or something, but it was just like, having to deal with like people being like, oh, like you're disrespecting our country. And I was like, well, no, it's just because that's what my family believes. Like, it's just something as simple as that. But to everyone else, it's like our ways were like wrong to them for some reason. And another thing too, when I was 14, there was a transgender girl who committed suicide. Her name was Leila Alcorn. And that I remember being like pretty like new to like social media and like the internet at the time. And I remember like seeing that and like thinking like, oh my gosh, there are people out there who are like taking their own lives because of like this kind of like oppression coming from even like their own families or like people around them in their community. So that too kind of like really like radicalized me. That was like probably the first thing where I was like really up in arms about what had happened. So that was kind of like what happened for me, just signing like petitions and like that kind of stuff online, since at the time I wasn't exactly like old enough to go out and do much or like, drive anywhere. So that was probably mine. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to throw this comment up here. Sandra Redhorn is telling her that she is proud of Alex too as well. I just want to throw it up there. I had to do that. But if anybody is watching and you have any questions at all, please feel free to throw those into the comments. We will definitely answer those as we go too as well. And I don't want to miss out Keely. Keely, what is your first experience that got you into activism, or what drives you?
Yeah, so I kind of just want to reiterate some of the things that were said. Like Alex said, when she does this work, it feels magical. And I know Bella has said, like, considers herself a radical. And I just have to say that, like, I do agree with all of those things. I agree that it is magical when we can implement change peacefully, because these institutions and these states of oppression have been intergenerational. These things have been going on for so long, and it's so magical when like we can create this change and know that like our future generations won't have to feel the way that we have had to feel. And so a lot of the work we do is like, it's extra work, right, on top of what we're already doing. And so like, I just thank you everyone here. And like, I would say I accidentally got into this work, and I think that happens for a lot of us. When I was in high school, I was in speech. And so I went to competitions and I would give speeches written by other people, and I would just practice for, months, and then go to the competition and compete against other people. And I kept trying to find a speech that I felt comfortable giving, right? And these are words, and I felt like they were very powerful, and I wanted them to be, but I wasn't really relating to anything that I was reading or any of the speeches I was looking over. And then I found Christine's speech from the Women's March, and it didn't feel radical to me. It felt so unradical in a world of radical things. And so that's what got me started. I just felt like so comfortable with her speech. I'm like, oh, this is the most normal thing I've ever read. I want to give this speech because I don't know why it's not normal, why it's not being talked about. And so then I met Christine, and now I'm here. So.
Right? I feel like that's a lot. I met Christine in 2017, and here I am, so a lot of that too. I wish Christine could be on today. She's pretty busy though, but maybe she'll pop on later, maybe. But we are very thankful to have met Christine, who is the founder of Great Plains Action Society. It was formerly known as Indigenous Iowa. However, when addressing kind of like decolonizing, we wanted to have a name that was representative of what we do and who we are. So Great Plains, we're kind of centered in Great Plains, basically. And then action, because we always want to be urgent. We always want to be demanding, as far as like demanding change. And then society, because we wanted to incorporate, scholars and scientists and nurses and, just, and you don't have to be that, you could be a philosopher, you could be, somebody that is just a really game changer. But basically just challenging our thinking, and kind of challenging the way that we see the world too as well. So that's how our name came to be. We do have a comment or a question. Leandra Hallow Neffin. I don't know if I said your last name right, but I apologize if I mispronounced it. She asked, what are your hopes for the future? What are your hopes for the future? I guess my hopes for the future is to basically, see more representatives of color. I want to see more BIPOC folks go and vote, which we'll talk about that too. Keely and Alexandria and myself have worked with Vote Mob, which is an amazing platform to work for. So shout out to Vote Mob. But basically, I would like to see more BIPOC communities and voters go out and vote, because I know that it is a very colonialistic system, but I feel like right now that we need to basically infiltrate the system, because if we can infiltrate it, then we can start changing those systems and we can start, addressing those things. Do I feel like we'll entirely get rid of it? I would love to. I would hope to see that. However, it's just centuries upon centuries upon centuries of just the same thing that, it's going to be hard to get rid of. But I think that if we can at least infiltrate the system and get people of color in there to stand up and really represent us, that we can have the most change there. My other hope is that, that we do have Biden stand by what he says he's going to do, especially for the Biden-Harris plan for tribal nations. However, like I said, not every president is going to be able to deliver, all their promises, but we want to make sure that we have enough pressure on him to do those things. So those are kind of my hopes and aspirations. I would love to see our youth just get encouraged and uplifted, especially in spaces where they normally aren't, because I feel like it's our Indigenous youth that have so many things to say and so many wonderful ideas, and it just always gets like the back burner. And I'm tired of seeing that. I'm tired of Indigenous organizers, grassroots, just youth in general, just kind of get the back burner, and they have so many ideas that are just so great. So I am going to go over to Silas. Silas, what are your hopes for the future?
My hopes for the future is that we don't really have to have no more black snakes in native land, but that's my only hope. Like, doing all these fights, it's gonna get tiring, and I don't want my kids and my grandkids fighting these black snakes. I want this to be the last fight that we have to with the Dakota Access Pipeline, Line 3, Line 5, the KXL that the fight finally won. So yeah, that's my.
Right on. Shout out to all the black snake killers and all the water protectors. I just had to put that in there because I don't feel like they get enough, not recognition, but like I always got to show love to them. So definitely, I do not want to see any more black snakes myself. It's just an old, dirty, it's outdated. I think it's time to look for different ways. And that's why I say, like, Indigenous youth have so many bright ideas. And I feel like, if we really invested that, that there would be, we could pull away from that. So, Alex, what are your hopes for the future?
Well, kind of what you're talking about, Trish, when you were saying we need to get more Indigenous folks out into like representation and stuff. I remember in high school, like it must have been my freshman year. I really looked up to I still do, but I really looked up to my Dega Isaac Smith, and he was kind of on tribal council for a little bit, so he was a bit of a community leader in a way. But also, he'd always been there for me and my family. And one of the things, like, unfortunately, there's not multiple me's, I can't do everything, but one of the things he said is that the reason why we can't get a lot of changes in Indigenous communities is because we don't have that representation too, like in Congress or, the Senate and all that stuff. And it's great that we're seeing that change slowly happen now, but I think for these legislatures and for things to change, I'd love to see more Indigenous people out in every field. It's the exact symbolism, knowing and letting people know that we're here. So, yeah.
Yeah, Isaac Smith is awesome. He was there when I got pepper sprayed. So he was there. He's really cool. He's awesome. Your Deg is awesome. But yes, I do, like I said, we do need more representation, more representatives of color that are going to be there to actually talk about the things that are going on in our communities and real life issues that mirror what we go through. So I definitely agree. Bella, what are your hopes for the future?
My probably biggest hope is that we can kind of start abolishing some of the colonialist, imperialist institutions that we have in America. I think right now a lot of our Congress leaders and policymakers, even though there's starting to be like a bit more representation, to me right now it feels like a lot of people who are in these positions of power are just people in positions of power who happen to have like a marginalized identity who are still oppressing us, So I really hope that eventually we can start representing people like us who have more like radical ideas. Because even if we make up, whatever the statistic would be, like only like 1 or 2%, whatever it may be, percent of the population, we still deserve people in Congress. We still deserve people who are going to represent those ideals, so that hopefully eventually, we can start kind of working from the ground up and like a new like society and way of governance that, can be dreamed from anything. Like right now, what we have seems very all encompassing and like that's the end all be all, but it doesn't have to be, because what we're looking at right now is just like, this is just what we've done for so long that most people don't even dare to think of something else that could oppose it. So just more people who could represent people like us and hopefully make big institutional changes in the future.
Right on, definitely. I was going to say something that has slipped my mind. I'll switch it over to Keely. What are your hopes for? Hopefully it'll come back. I'm sure it will. I'll let Keely kind of, what are your hopes for the future, Keely?
Yeah, like I kind of touched on earlier, my hopes are that like our future generations of children, can be children. They don't have to worry about whether they will have access to water or internet access, or if they could pay for an education, and then what that would mean for the rest of their life. And so I think the topic that is most imminent to the safeguarding of our future generations is the climate, because the damage that's being done is irreversible. And so I would say that my hope is that we can find sustainable alternatives to pipelines, sustainable alternatives to, food sovereignty, like rebuilding up food sovereignty systems and kind of dismantling those big corporations that are damaging our environment and aren't being held responsible for it. And also, kind of like what Bella said, the separation of corporate America from politics, because I think a lot of times any representation that we do have in politics is undermined by that. And so those are just a few of my hopes.
For sure. It came back to me. Yes, I definitely agree, Keely. Bella was talking about, maybe we have a small percentage of, Indigenous people. However, I think that most recently there's more articles and like things that are being talked about how, oh, this is connected, or, I think, what was it? I was having a conversation with William Hawk, and he was saying something about DNA and how it was actually connected to water some way. But it's like Indigenous people, we already knew that. Like we've been telling people this, and like we're all connected in some way. But now we have like the science to say that what we've been saying all along. So yeah, I definitely agree that we don't need to cut out people that already know these things and can bring it to the table and have those discussions and say, hey, this is how we used to do things, and maybe we can do this now going forward because this is healthy, or this is this is beneficial, and this is why. So I definitely just want to kind of piggyback off of what Bella was saying. Again, if you are watching, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them into the comments and we will focus on those. I did see another comment here that says, I'm noticing an uptick on boys and men going missing by Mona. And that's something that we can talk about is MMIW. It is coming up. I like to say MMIR, which is relatives. I know some people are saying MMIP, which are peoples or people. But however you say it, it's basically this epidemic of our Indigenous relatives going missing and then murdered. We do have an event coming up that is on May 5th. It's going to be in Sioux City from 5 to 7. That'll be at the Sioux City Public Museum. We do have a raffle going on. I graciously and so hard worked on these skirts, these ribbon skirts, and these bags, and it's filled with self-care items. So we have like, what is there, like sunglasses, nail polish, a journal, some incense, things like that. There's blankets with it too, which those blankets, I want a blanket so bad. So, but anyways, you can definitely visit that at fundly.com/MMIR-raffle. It is $20 for an entry. However, if you want to do 3 entries, it's $50. We'll have the raffle items at the event. So if you don't have PayPal or anything like that, or not PayPal, but if you don't have a way to use, debit card or anything like that, that'll be at the event. So we're going to do cash payment too as well. Let's see, what else is there? We do have our fund open, and basically this is just to help families and victims of MMIR or MMIW, however you want to term it. And we are looking to basically create proactive solutions to that, whether it is self-defense classes, workshops, education. We definitely want to help the victims and the families out as well. So like memorial planning, if there's a legal consultation fee where they just want to talk to a lawyer and they just need answers, that we can provide that too as well. So we're just trying to create proactive solutions to this problem instead of reactive. So that way we can kind of, help out wherever we can, grassroots way. So you can visit that. Once again, you can go on our website, greatplainsaction.org, under campaigns and MMIR. I don't want to talk too much more about that, but I do want to raise the question of, as far as like the Biden administration, they have definitely put that as one of their priorities is to enact, legislation that's going to protect missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. With that comes with Violence Against Women Act, which I'm not for sure if everyone's familiar on it, but I feel like we all have enough knowledge to kind of talk about MMIW and, maybe it's affected your own family. So I'm going to begin with Silas. Silas, what would you like to talk about in regards to missing and murdered Indigenous relatives?
Well, where I live, we had 2 MMAWs. I think it was in a 2-month radius. And where I live, it's a small town, and our people have one of the most murdered in Indigenous women. I think I said that wrong. Our race has the most out of anyone, and I think it's because when colonizers came in and they started killing us and putting in smallpox and giving us blankets, that kind of got, and then now it's still happening. The racism is getting more and more deep, and I'm just thinking of ways how I could stop it, because this is our people we're talking about. This is our birth givers that we're killing, that they're killing, not we're. And yeah.
For sure, I definitely agree. As far as statistics, I think it's 4 out of 5 women will definitely experience some kind of violence within their lifetime if they haven't already. I think half of them are non-native perpetrators. So I know with pipelines that man camps are notorious for that. I think, what was it? The Star Tribune, I can't remember. I think it was in Minnesota. Don't quote me on that. But I do know that there was a sex ring or a human sex trafficking ring that was basically taken down, but it stemmed from the man camps. And when asked, one of the perpetrators, when asked why did you what was the purpose, why did you do it? It was quote unquote because they were so many miles away from home that they were just isolated, and so they felt that it was okay to prey on our women or our communities, which it is never okay to do that. It does stem back from, since the first contact with settlers or colonizers. Columbus had journals about that. And I feel like there's I think George Washington even had made some comments about that, but Columbus had actually put into his journals, that there was a high demand for 12-year-olds. And I was like, that is disgusting. And it was just, it's mind blowing, because back then I'm sure it was probably but now that you look at it, it's this has been going on ever since the first contact. This is nothing new. It's just been basically perpetrate, or what is the word? It's been going on for a very long time, basically. And, it hasn't stopped. It's maybe changed its face, but more or less, it's still going on, and it's been challenging, to say the least. So I'm going to switch it over to Alex, because I know that's how we met, was actually, I think it was for the Cozy Decora, rest in peace, Cozy Decora. The family is still seeking their justice in that. So yes. So Alex, I'm going to let you kind of talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about MMIW or MMIR.
All right. Coincidentally enough, I was actually on a panel earlier this week for my university, which, we got a grant about a year ago to set a project based around MMIR. And I mean, it wasn't specifically for UNO. I wasn't a part of the program. It was like in the College of Public Affairs or something like that, the criminal justice program there at UNO. But they went around surveying Native communities, and not just, like reservations, but it was, here in Omaha and Lincoln, urban areas and whatnot. So on this panel, they wanted to hear from the students. And one of the biggest things for me, like right now, I'm coming at y'all from Omaha. So it's like one of the biggest, the cities where a lot of these cases happen. And, just being a student, an Indigenous student for that matter, away from home, because as I said, I'm from the reservation. So it's, I don't feel as secure as I would if I were up there. So it's really scary being an Indigenous student away from home. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, I'm afraid to do anything on my own, which is why, hey, I'm always with a friend. And, that's how it should be. That way, you don't feel, I guess, like something really bad is going to happen. I would also like to just shout out, the event that we're having next week, or this upcoming Wednesday as well. It's going to be for a good cause. So, yeah.
Little shameless plug. But yes, I definitely feel that way. I felt that way when I lived in Cedar Falls, even though Cedar Falls, Iowa, that is. But I kind of grew up there, but at the same time, like, it's, again, it goes back to the colonization, like first contact. It's like these sexual connotations, or like being exotic, or, it's an Indian woman, or, those are so dangerous to our communities. The way that pop media and pop culture portray us as, like, we have these little, like, little fringy dresses, and that's just it's just not okay. So that's definitely, I feel like that's when you go out into non-native cities, that's kind of what they're, and sometimes we have to not blame them, or put them at fault for that, because that's all they've known. They don't know, they're not cultured, I guess. They don't know as much as they should. But that's why we have, these live streams, or like, we have actions, or, we have rallies, or, just events, so we can have those conversations, and maybe non-natives will take that initiative to take that and, learn more and be more cultured. So, Bella, what would you like to talk about in regards to MMIW, MMIR?
So you mentioned how people, women especially, can be kind of one-dimensional when it comes to the media portrayal of us. I recently watched documentary called Killing Us Softly 4. It's the 4th installation of it. And it specifically talked about how ad campaigns shape the perceptions of women. Things like women being, sexy and attractive, but still like having the construct of like virginity and like purity tied to them like that. I think those kinds of messages that get sent out about women especially really make it seem, they're just objectifying us, like, plain and simple. It's literally turning us into objects that can be used, or that are able to be changed by, forgive my vulgarity, but by a man's penis. Like, there's no reason that we can't be our own human beings that, make our own decisions about our own lives, that are autonomous and powerful at the same time. It makes me very angry, to put it simply, when I hear stories of more and more of our relatives going missing, female or not. I think another thing too is that in most communities, there's like a large amount of homophobia and transphobia that results in a lot of our two-spirit relatives being abducted and trafficked as well, as part of like a perverted fantasy to inflict harm on people because of their gender, their sexual orientation, their like race, like that kind of things. People, I think it's very normalized in our society for abusers, especially male abusers, to want to have that, you know, power over someone, so much so that they can not only alter their lives, but even end up taking it.
For sure. Thank you so much for mentioning two spirits. For people that may not know what two spirits are, I'm not two spirit myself, so I do apologize. I don't mean to offend anybody. From what my understanding is that they're members of the LGBTQ plus community. And then basically too, I want to kind of talk about how other cultures, like not, you know, obviously not from the US, but other cultures around the country also have different genders. So I know some cultures have 5 different genders that they can identify with. And, you know, from first contact, it's like, it's just been, you know, homophobia, you know, men can't, you know, you can't be with another man, or you can't be with another woman, or, you know, but this all came from, you know, the first contact and bringing that over. But it's really funny because it's a very conflicting, you know, like we get this homophobia from, you know, settlers and, you know, whatever. That's how I feel. But then you have like their history of like them hooking up with their cousins and like their sisters and having babies, and like they don't shower, like, you know, so it's just, it's mind blowing to me, to that people, they talk about that, and then it's like, do you really understand like where this came from, and then the people that it came from? And yeah, so that's just kind of my little rant. I'll get off my soapbox now. Keely, what would you like to talk about in regards to MMIR, MMIW?
Thank you for explaining that. I guess, yeah, a lot of these things come out of that like ignorance in wanting to simplify things and categorize people, like outdated ideologies like race that don't really serve purposes more than they benefit. And the same with, you know, I would say that, yeah, there's just like a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to like people being scared of the unknown. And the thing is that a lot of these problems stem from that ignorance, and that our histories aren't taught in school. The origins of all of these acts of and ideas of violence are rooted in the history, and they're not taught. You know, the history isn't taught, let alone topics like these in schools. So, you know, children like don't even understand why they have these ideas. They just know that they have them, and they're so engraved in them that they can't, you know, almost get out of them. And so I would say that, you know, education really needs to happen, and that's also like another one of my hopes. But my first kind of, I guess, experience in like relating to MMIP or R would be like growing up, and Halloween came around, right? And we would go into like stores, and we would look for costumes, like me and my mom and whatever. And we would see these like over-sexualized costumes of like our ethnicity. And it's just like very bizarre. And every single time I would see one, I'm like, oh, I know we're going to be here for another 30 or 45 minutes, because like we need to go find a manager and talk to someone and just make it clear that this isn't okay. And, you know, it's the same with racist mascots as well. But yeah, those things are very, very harmful. And now as I've grown up and realized like why, like some of the repercussions of things like that are engraved in our society, people thinking it's okay to dress up as an ethnicity or a race. I would like studying federal law. It's almost like not protected on that side either, because there's so many jurisdictional issues in when like a crime or a person goes missing. You know, it's it's not always that immediate, like, let's go find them, where are they? It's, well, who can cover this case? Is it the tribal police? Is it, you know, the town's police? Is it, you know? And so all that confusion and that overlapping, who did it, whose land is it on, creates just even more vagueness in these cases that are so important and need to be tackled in a very timely manner. And I think a lot of the times that really inhibits, you know, bringing our relatives home. And so, yeah, I really hope to see change in the federal law and state laws to further protect our people who haven't been protected historically.
Thank you, Keely, for addressing that too. Another thing too is like, even as our own, like, I feel like our own tribal nations need to kind of address their own self too, like check themselves too, because sometimes we have those, we have, you know, relatives and they're our family, and we have to stick up for them. But, you know, if your relative is being a predator and being very dangerous to the community, I think that that needs to be addressed too as well. I think our tribal legislations should definitely step up, and, you know, we know this is an epidemic, so and we know this happens, you know, on or off the res. I think more or less, I think it happens more with I think it's interracial. But I think as a protected measure that we as tribal nations need to implement legislation too, that is going to help our own communities as well. So I think for the most part, I think they kind of do the typical 2-day, your relative has to be missing for 2 days before they can report it missing. However, I feel like it should be 1 day, you know, because if we can just, you know, if we have that urgency with our relatives, that, you know, we treat it very seriously, whether it's something that turns out to be, or something that isn't, you know. I think that every time someone says, hey, I can't find my sister, I can't find my brother, I can't find my little daughter, you know, it needs to be addressed immediately. It's not something, oh, well, she walked away, or she did this, or he did that. Oh, they're always fighting. Like every single time, it needs to be consistent in helping our Indigenous relatives with this epidemic. So I will kind of switch it up right now. I know we talked about legalization of cannabis. What else is there? The public education system. I guess let's talk about climate change, because I feel like climate change is always like, we need to address that. So I don't know if anybody has a general question at all as far as like what they really want to talk about climate change. I know with the black snakes, you know, that's definitely, you know, always on my mind, as far as like the Dakota Access Pipeline. Like I mentioned earlier, that's I think they're petitioning now, or like they want to double the flow, even though it's illegal. Like all the permits that they needed are vacated, and so it's operating illegally, but they're still like trying to push this doubling and things like that. So I guess my question would be, as far as climate change, there's so many things that I could just oh, I think we lost Silas. Does anyone want to help me out at all? I'm just trying to think of a real general question. I guess, okay. What would you like the Biden administration to do in regards to climate change? Like, what do you want to see happen? Whether it's maybe like solar power, maybe it's implementing legislation, things of that sort. So I will start with Alexandria. What do you want to see in regards to having a real response to climate change when it comes to the Biden administration?
So, for those who don't know, I was on a panel earlier on this year with Mark Ruffalo and a few other people to discuss the rights of nature in the film that was called The Invisible Hand. And in this film, it covered different towns or different events that were occurring around the US. And one of these events was in Standing Rock. So, you know, what happened up there with the Dakota Access Pipeline. I think a lot of the things that need to happen regarding change and, well, climate change to make sure that the environment is more secure. One of the concepts that was covered in this panel for the rights of nature was literally just giving rights to nature, you know, putting laws around the environment to protect it. And, you know, that's not saying a plant's going to sue you or anything, but I mean, if somebody's doing something, then, you know, they're going to get in way more trouble than currently what they are, I guess, to put it that way. And it would protect the environment a lot more as well. So I think we need to start reducing on the things, you know, like plastics that get put out into the environment that ruin it. We need to become more eco-friendly. And I mean, I'm not just saying we, I mean, like the president needs to like create something like that that's going to create a plan that's going to do something about it. And I think I seen something, an article, it was, I think it was something like by the year 2030 something, we will start seeing irreversible changes in our environment. So I think we need to do something and able to prevent these changes, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What else is? Oh, yes, I was gonna say, you know, as far as I was watching Seaspiracy on, I think it was Netflix, but it was interesting because I know some of these platforms may use what is it like fiscal sponsors that, you know, basically are like, we're 100%, you know, this or that, and then it turns out like in this documentary that they actually don't do anything at all. What I'm talking about is there is in Seaspiracy, there are some they're talking about water protection and basically how, you know, there's a huge campaign on straws. However, straws is like 2% of like what really needs to be addressed. Most of that is fishing gear, like fishing nets, is one of the main polluters of the oceans, and people or not people, but animals and ecosystems are suffering because of, you know, these nets. They get, you know, tossed into the ocean, or, you know, people are just being careful, and then, you know, that harms the whole ecosystem down there, because then the fish get caught in it and they die, and the coral reefs, it's all connected, you know. Again, that was kind of my rant. So Bella, what would you like to see in regards to a strong response to the climate crisis from the Biden administration?
I think we have to recognize environmental racism and that kind of things, especially against like Native American communities, like we were talking about black snakes in our land and things like that. Obviously, that needs to go. But another thing too is that it seems that, you know, the elites, who are the majority of the polluters in the world, get to reap all of the benefits for having done all these issues, or like made all these issues for the planet, and then they just, you know, get to sit on a wad of cash because of it, while people in black and brown communities are still, you know, like Flint, Michigan, still without water. A lot of reservations are still without water, or at least clean water, or need to go really far to get water, things like that. I think also too that we need to stop focusing on the like hyper profitability of environmental change. I think the fact that, you know, I see so many statistics saying like, well, actually it's like cheaper if we do this for the environment. But to me, I'm like, well, it shouldn't have to matter. Like, how it's cheaper for the environment, because I don't want there to be no environment when, I don't know, like 10, 20 years from now, that kind of thing. Just like right now, with how profit focused most of America is, it's just so individualistic and has nothing to do with our like civil obligations to like our future children, grandchildren, or even just like people here now who we may know who are suffering from that kind of both environmental racism or other forms of like climate change.
Definitely, I feel like environmental racism is so real. There's a question in our comments, which I will probably do that after we do this answer this question, because it ties in with environmental racism and the climate movement. So, but Keely, what would you like to see in regards to a strong response to the climate crisis, from the Biden administration?
Yeah, I would like to see, in the next few years, that shift. I would like to see the promotion of renewable energy as opposed to non-renewable energy, and from various sources as well. But yeah, there's no reason why it shouldn't be happening today or tomorrow or the day after. I don't really know what the holdup is, and I don't really feel like it's the job of the individual to make these like, I know for a long time, like recycling was a big thing, or like individual responsibility. And, I felt that for so long, and I go by that as well. But then I started wondering, like, why do I have to like go out of my way to like drive to a grocery store that might have better packaging, or, whatever? Why isn't it like just inherent? Like, and like Bella said, by holding, more of the corporations accountable for their greenwashing and for giving us sustainable alternatives to the status quo, we don't have to feel that like individual guilt living on a planet and part of a bigger system, that depends on sustainable things and cannot be like, you cannot go back once you destroy the one planet we live on. And so like 150 species, like on average, go extinct every single day. And so, the way you treat beings on this planet is this kind of similar how you would treat the land. And so like those beings that live on the land are off on the land that is treated less than ideal. It like ties together. And so, yeah, I just feel like, the people doing the most damage, our country, the work that climate advocates do here in America, they're also doing it for other countries that will be affected first, because this is like a global thing, not just, our country. And so I think that our president needs to take responsibility for, environmental degradation internationally as well, because we are not going to be the first people to, our communities will be like some of the first people, but also like people in other countries as well. And so I think it's important, like, not to put a price, a money price on people or beings. And so I would just like to see kind of what happened with COVID, the depoliticization of, sustainability and the climate.
Very well put. Very well put. I'm going to jump over to Silas, because I'm going to end the live stream at 2:30, just because we didn't have everybody. So I definitely would like to keep going, but I do know that some people have some other things to do. So so we will go over to Silas, and then we will take another question or two, just depending on how quickly we answer it. So Silas, what would you like to see as far as like a strong response to the climate crisis from the Biden administration? What would you like to see?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm kind of confused about the answer. I don't know why, but honestly, Cause there's more to like. But honestly, there's more to than pipelines for climate change. There's always sorry about that, my mom, about air pollution and all of this. It's like, and I always thought about it like we can always switch. There's two plants that are always there, and it's called hemp and bamboo. And I think Biden he should look more into in our future president look more into going into that more sustainable life, which won't be affecting our waters and the era of fossil fuels. To tell them to end the era of fossil fuels, and let's switch to hemp and bamboo because that's our only choice to save this and fossil fuels.
Definitely. Okay, so our next question, which we were kind of, I think Bella touched on it, is from Leandra again. Leandra says, why should racial equality be at the heart of the climate movement? And I just personally want to say that it should always be at the center because gosh, there's just so many things as far as, I could take it back to, again, first contact where we had a certain way of how we did things here. And then we gave that gift of knowledge to the settlers. And then more or less it was turned on us. And then those were definitely ignored. And then capitalism basically just destroyed our planet. Whether, I live in Iowa, so like Iowa used to be so diverse. It was biologically diverse as a rainforest, but now it's a desert, and we have like all these golf courses and just unnecessary like monocropping. We have soybeans and corn, and so I think that it's just like an erasure of the indigenous peoples here. And it's just a continuation of that, especially when we talk about like fossil fuel extraction projects or, even just big ag in general. Like, so in Iowa, we have, I think, more pork, more pigs than actual people. And that's really problematic because pigs, obviously, they're not from here. They're not indigenous to this land. So, but then they have CAFOs and, we have manure or like they're just basically their crap, and it's very toxic and that leaches into the water. And then those, that goes into whether it's a rural community or, if it's right next to a reservation, that means that it's getting into our water systems. And, and sometimes we may depend on that water. That's the only water source that we have. And it's really problematic because it's like, how can you have that much disregard to the first people here, the first inhabitants? And then on top of that, we see that communities of color, they're basically pushed into these areas where it's like low rent or, whatever, but they're basically pushing them in areas that are unfavorable. But then you have, non-natives that are, rich and, whatever, and they have these nice, areas where, everything is nice and they don't have to worry about water quality or air pollution or anything like that. So I think that the racial equality should always be at the center of the climate movement because it's people. We're people, and this is we were the first caretakers, and we took that very seriously, and it carried us through a lot, but now that we see capitalism basically destroying our planet, it's really sad to see that. So I'll switch it to Alexandria. The question is, why should racial equality be at the heart of the climate movement?
Wow, I didn't really think I'd ever compare Game of Thrones to real life, but so I just finished watching the entire TV show like last week, and the plot of it is that there's lots of wars happening at once. So, and able to, conquer all these wars, you all need to band together in one way or another. So I think it reminded me much like real life, where, right now there's so many things going on in the world that we can't even take them on completely because everybody's in disagreement with each other. And for racial equality to be at the center of this needs to be a thing, because like what Tricia said, we're all people. We all want the same things. We all want this world to go on. We all want to have, our descendants in the world. And if that's not happening, if we aren't able to have this racial equality, then we're not able to conquer these issues that we face daily. So I just wanted to, say that it's really important for this to be at the center of it all.
Definitely. Thank you, Alexandria. Bella, why should racial equality be at the heart of the climate movement?
I mean, part of it is because of my answer that I was talking about earlier, but I also think that, like you were saying, Tricia, how people who are kind of like the wealthy elites in our society in suburbs, mainly white people, because they are like the power majority, don't have to, on a larger scale, worry about environmental change as much as poorer communities, Black and Brown communities, and Indigenous communities would about climate change. And climate change is not going to be solved if it's just Black, Brown, poor, marginalized people talking about climate change, which is kind of the trend right now. There's not a lot of white activists or people who are part of the majority talking about the environment and the climate movement. So it's once all of our communities are gone due to climate change, if God forbid that happens, they're going to be next. They're still in line to be next for climate change, and just because it's going to happen, a decade or two later than wiping our communities out, they still need to be worried about that. They still need to be talking about that right now, because once all other communities are gone, it's going to be them next. So again, obviously we don't want it to get to that point, because right now we have the ability and the tools to change that. It's just, late stage capitalism mostly preventing that. But I think, nothing's going to change with climate change until the elites see it as a problem with a problem that's going to be happening to their communities. There's not a lot of empathy there for them to realize oh, this could happen to us too, because it certainly can.
That last part though. So a lot of these people too. So what I noticed was with the Dakota Access Pipeline that it was going through Iowa. And so the non-native landowners were terrified. They're absolutely terrified, as they should be. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's it can happen. It has happened to them. And now that they know that it can happen to them, they take it more seriously. But as Indigenous people, we have dealt with this for so long, since first contact. And we've been telling them that, and we've been telling them that, and telling them. And it's kind of we told you, we told you so, you're not exempt from that. And so it's really frustrating, because we as Indigenous people, or, minority groups of people, we've been telling non-native people that. We've been telling them that. And as soon as it happened to them, then it's a big deal. Then everyone takes it seriously. And that is so problematic. It's why, it's a form of gaslighting to, to minority groups. It's oh, it doesn't exist, you're crazy. And then when it does happen, then it's we told you so, so, and it's especially with, in Iowa, I seen that. And then also, with Bismarck, Bismarck was supposed to originally have that pipeline go through their lands, and then it's mainly white Caucasian people that live there, and they're like, oh no, nay, we can't have this. But then they reroute it to close nearby to the Standing Rock Reservation, and then it was okay. So so I just definitely want to kind of put that in there too as well. Keely, why should racial equality be at the heart of the climate movement?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. Like, we can't wait around for it to happen to everyone in order for like people to care, because our communities are already like seeing the effects and being affected by climate change. And yeah, the difference is like a lot of people don't have like that kind of capital to just like, oh, that's okay, I'll build another unsustainable thing to make up for the actual problem. And that's a lot of what we see with previous administrations, not actually getting to that root, and really just trying to like, or like what you said with corporations greenwashing. And like a lot of times they'll say like, we're net carbon zero. That doesn't mean anything though. Like, you're still putting carbon out. You're just making up for it in a measure that might not actually equate to like making it right. It's not. So yeah, and like the movement of pipelines, like the places and the lands that are being environmentally degraded the most is not accidental. So like internationally and both within our country, it's very carefully planned where they're going to do these things. They will purposely move pipelines out of certain communities to put them, places where no one is. But, we're everywhere. Like humans humans are all over the world. And so like, I just try to go by like, if you wouldn't put this in your backyard, if you wouldn't put this in your home, then, maybe don't do it.
I can't stress that enough. Silas, why should racial equality be at the heart of the climate movement?
As you know, this is native land. You're always welcome, but as long as you don't steal it or pollute it, that's the main priority if you're going to be on our land. And put it in a pipeline and air pollution all over. It's not. So guess what? You're not welcome. And that's what I think. This is a native land, and it feels, and this is such a sacred areas that's being polluted with these pipelines and air pollution and plus our water. This is where we mostly got our drinking water from. And that's what I think at the heart of climate change and all that.
Silas, you were kind of cutting out, but I got the general. This is native land, and we were the original caretakers of this land, and I think we did a really good job of it. I know that they term it as traditional ecological knowledge, but that's just how we did it, and this is how we live. So I'm going to kind of sign off here. I know it says until 3 p.m., but we just didn't have enough people to kind of go to the 3 o'clock time, which is fine though. We still had great conversations. I want to thank Bella and Silas for being here and taking time out of your day to do this live stream. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with you in the future. And then also Keely and Alexandria for being amazing interns. If you would like to follow us, you can follow us on Facebook at Great Plains Action Society. I do believe our Instagram is the same way too as well. Twitter is at Plains Action. We do have a TikTok. We've been slowly posting on that. I know I keep saying I'm going to do a TikTok and I just haven't had time to do it. So, but yes, this is pretty much the wrap up of our first 100 days of change, basically addressing the first 100 days of Biden being in office. However, this is only just an introductory kind of campaign. We are very committed to political engagement, and especially for Indigenous youth. As the conversation we just had, we need more Indigenous representation. So, whether that's BIPOC voters, whether that is, encouraging BIPOC representatives to run, or, just encouraging people to just get involved in some kind of way. You don't have to necessarily engage politically. You can also, nonviolent direct actions, protest, petitions. You don't have to go that way necessarily. You can still make change. There's different ways that you can do it. So with that, thank you everyone for being here. I'm very excited to have met you and have this conversation. And yes, so everyone have a great day, and be on the lookout very soon for other events and whatnot.